Hello everyone, Dan here. Very quick interjection before this one starts. I recorded this one at a very long week of recording and work and all this stuff, and I admittedly am very tired. I think I'm more exhausted than I realised when I started recording this one. It's not a huge problem or anything, it's just there's a few moments you'll realise that's the case. But the main reason I'm doing this is to clarify that I have since this episode watched the final and realised that I was incorrect. I theorised, not theorised, but I say that the modulated conductor voice might be a modulated Lena Headey voice, but it's not. It's actually Matthew Rhys who voices Ulrich. She borrows his voice when as the conductor. I guess they did that to help disguise the twist. But I didn't realise that when I was watching this one. So before I get 1,000 comments telling me something I've already found out by watching the next one, just thought I'd clarify, save you all typing. Otherwise, enjoy this episode of Rambling Reviews, Infinity Train, Episode 9. I don't even want this. The Past Car. That's it. Didn't remember the title for a second, but there it is. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to another Rambling Review. Down here, we're doing it. It's number 9, nearly there, over the hump. That makes it sound like it's a chore. It really isn't. What a joy. This is episode 9, The Past Car. We're going to be, I say breaking down, sort of reviewing, sort of discussing, bit of everything. Hopefully not as much pointless speculation, because it occurs to me that I've wasted a lot of these videos speculating when you guys already know. I don't know if that's fun for you guys or not. Comment below. Sure, why not? But in terms of this episode, like another great episode. This one is going to be harder to review because it feels very much like a part 1. I was nearly watched them together, but then I thought maybe I'm just doing that out of just because I really want an excuse to watch the next one. So I've not yet watched the final part. I've been patient. So let's see. Let's get into it. This one's what I love most about this one is just that it literally picked up where the last one left off, which I think is strong as a choice. For those who don't remember, Tulip in the ball car pit from the previous episode with the Atticus that's been either turned into or used to be a that sort of like cockroach monster thing. His crown continues to exist. She keeps hold of that. She puts it in her bag. And then basically the cat turns up and is like, hey, I can help you turn him back. She's pretty much ready to bone out. She's like, I'm done with all this. And her number starts going up and the cat's like, well, wait, bear with me. Maybe we can fix this. And out of a desire to help Atticus, Tulip decides to take the cat up on that offer, and they end up watching another tape for another passenger who you initially think is I've forgotten his name now. That was typical. What was the names? Ulrich. And basically, during the course of his story, you get the impression that he became the false conductor, as I've taken to calling them, although less confident of that this week. But because there's no real hint here that he's not in this episode, and I really thought they'd sort of maybe tease that. Sorry, not he, even she, because it turns out there's a double bluff in this episode, and it's actually Amelia. That's the conductor, or becomes the conductor, and basically the idea is, through the flashbacks, we find out that this Amelia lost her love, Ulrich, and in that state of pain and suffering, she also found the train. And basically what we find out from the cat is that there once was another conductor. No, I guess that confirms my theory. I suppose no. Well, let's that's kind of what I was saying, wasn't it? That it's kind of it kind of is and isn't what I was suggesting. I was sort of suggesting that it had been a recent. I was kind of suggesting there was someone pretending to be the conductor, maybe suggesting there is an existing conductor, but this sort of says like, oh, there was a conductor, but they're like gone. This is all that's left. So that sort of means that I'm kind of right in that this isn't the original conductor or intended conductor of the train. but it doesn't actually. It doesn't mean there's still another curtain yet to be pulled back to reveal a further conductor. So it's only a partial correct on my theory. I'm right in describing Amelia as being sort of like a false conductor, but I'm not right in my suggestion that there's going to be some sort of like reveal that someone else is. This is as far as we're concerned in terms of this story. For the purposes of what's going to go forward now, we're dealing with Amelia as the conductor, and the old conductor, whoever that was, not relevant by the sound of it. That's kind of the impression I'm getting here. Unless... No, I don't see any real way unless it's someone we know, but the only person left that we know is 1-1, who I'm now pretty much certain is the mechanic, in quote marks, but we'll get back to that because this episode deals with that too. So basically, they go through the dreams. The story is that Amelia lost Ulrich, was found by the train, and when we pull out of the memories, which 1-1 had weird sort of powers in, which is again leads to my mechanic theory, or maintenance officer or something. The cat basically explains that Amelia was a human who learnt how to take advantage of this train, and has taken over as conductor, and points out this bit I found a little bit. They brushed over this so quickly I didn't fully understand the plan, but it's this or the leap in logic. So she shows her the front of the train, which, by the way, the train has a front. Another theory turned to ashes. Just why not while we're at it. My original theory, they'll get to the front and there's just nothing there. The door just opens and it's just a stretch, so I guess you can see the front. There is a front to the train, but I guess that is where the conductor is, the engine. So there you go, because that's where they're going. She sort of figures out there's cannons on the front of it, which Amelia has repurposed, and that's how she killed Atticus / turning him into the monster Atticus thing. The cockroach monster thing. Confused slightly. That was a little brushed over. There were 2 or 3 things in this episode that were a little bit dealt with a bit quicker than maybe they should have been. But we'll come back to that as I sort of review it a bit further. But yeah, the basic idea then is that Tulip learns that, well, if she's just a person and she can sort of control this train, then I'm going to give it a go too. And she basically uses her technology to hack into the train and actually send it up and flying forward to the front of the train, and the episode ends. Oh, sorry, I've skipped a huge point. She learns about herself in this episode. She learns she needs to stop running away because she learns from watching Amelia do the same thing she's been doing, and then her number hits 0, and the door actually opens that can take her home, and then that's when she makes the decision to stick around. We'll come back to that because I think there's a lot to talk about there in terms of character. Let's break it down properly. So in terms of just practical, God, I'm 7 minutes in and I've barely actually reviewed it. I've just sort of recapped. I hope I've given some commentary along that recap and it didn't just take me that long to recap it. First of all, I just want to point out that the dialogue is so good in this episode. There's so many great lines. I love the cat just in general. She gets all the best dialogue. I'm trapped beneath the weight of childhood escapism. Come on, I see you, Infinity Train. I see you. Yeah, really good. That's just great writing, isn't it? Really. So, they also showed Tulip's They start really by not harping on that makes it sound like they went too far. They really emphasize Tulip's how lost she is at the beginning of this episode. So basically the episode starts and she's like, I give up. I don't care about any of this anymore. I just want out. I'm done. I'm not interested in engaging with it. I'm not interested in any of it. And then the more depressed she gets, the number starts going up. One points out, you're losing progress, I think is the phrase he used. I think he says, losing progress, Miss Tulip. And she's like, I don't care. I literally don't care. What does it matter? Which really shows how sort of far she's fallen. I mean, this is absolutely her lowest point. And it takes the cat showing up to sort of point out that Atticus can be saved, that inspires Tulip to go, okay, well then what's the sitch? How do we fix this? And as a result, she goes along with this plan, even though she has all the reasons in the world not to trust the cat at all. I mean, Atticus needs her, because you'll notice she's basically like, no, you've lied to me twice. I'm not playing this game. And then it's the moment she hears Atticus, the monster Atticus, like crying from its where it's been trapped, that she turns around. It's done a little fast, the turnaround, because as I said, this episode really, really establishes how lost she is at the start of it. And then basically the cat's like, but I can help. She's like, no, you've lied to me twice, which is completely reasonable. And you go, well, I don't actually see how they're going to change her mind here, because she's absolutely right. And then it's like Atticus cries and she's like, okay, I guess we'll do this. And it's like, wait a minute ago you were done. So it's done slightly quick, but in this case, I think they just about get away with it. It's done quicker than maybe you'd have liked it to have been done, that turn, but you got to keep the plot moving. It's really important in this episode, so I didn't begrudge them that here. It seems the cat's plan obviously has this to show her this tape, the tape that belongs to Amelia. That is evidently the tape that the cat stole at the end of the cat car episode that I pointed out, that I saw she took one as she was leaving. It makes sense that she would have taken Amelia's tape as leverage, or maybe to trap Amelia later, the same way she tried to trap Tulip. So then there's some really weird bits that happen inside the dream. Let's talk about 1-1 for a second. So my theory on 1-1 has been that he's like a maintenance droid or a mechanic or something like that. Droid. Star Wars in the brain, I guess. That's his function, you know, because he went into that car. Maybe he makes and designs the cars, because they had that thing where he went into the car and he was, you know, in the unfinished car, just desperately trying to fix it, make it right, make it work. That's kind of, I don't know if this lends into that or lends into something deeper. I don't know, but basically in this episode, she goes into the memory that's stored on the tape. Of course, everyone who has been on and is on the train has one. Quick, sort of separate thought. Are there like other people on the train? I guess there are people on the train at the same time, because Amelia is still on the train. Is it weird that she's not running into anyone else? How many people are on the train at any one time? Maybe we know. Maybe it's that sort of like, what was it, the 6 tapes on the ground plus 3 or 4 up on the top of the shelf, and then Amelia. So like maybe there's like a dozen, like 10 to a dozen. It's strange they've not bumped into each other when you think about it. Or is the train just moving the cars around so they don't interact? You know, one is moving into a car while the other one is, they just picks the car up and moves it along a couple, keeps them out of each other's way. I don't know. See, that's an interesting thought. God, I've completely lost the train of thought now. The train of thought. I distracted myself. Yeah, so this tape for Amelia has her memories in it, but 1-1 just sort of appears in the memory. And I don't know what they're trying to tell us about 1-1's abilities here, because that seems like an ability he wouldn't necessarily be particularly useful to a maintenance machine. It seems outside of his authority. But yeah, they go in, and not only can he appear in there, which by the way is done with a great joke, because they have well, first of all, he doesn't know how he got in there. They're like, how'd you get in? He's like, I don't know. That's just funny in itself. He just sort of like, he was so determined to follow them, and it is you know, sort of, he just sort of went with it. It's just, oh yeah, no, this is what I do. I forgot what. Oh yeah, the line is something like, "So the glorified wind-up toy will be joining us," and he says, "I am glorious," which I think is just an amazing thing. And later on, he like rewinds one of the memories to watch it over and over again. Again, I don't really know what I have to say about that. I keep pointing it out, hoping that some thought. I think that's what's happening here. I've mentioned like 3 or 4 times that he has more power than I expected him to in that dream, but because I haven't had any thoughts as to why that would be or what that would be indicating, I just keep repeating it, hoping that I'm going to figure this out. That's the problem with these reviews. I watch the episode, I sit down, I got to record, and it's like, I almost wish I'd had more time to percolate on these things and actually come up with better concepts and ideas, because I just watched it. So it's like, well, technically I watched it twice because I went through it again for notes. But yeah, pretty recent. The notes viewing literally happening minutes before I sit down to record. I think it's interesting that Amelia has an engineering degree. I think they've set it's not interesting. It's clever. It's just like you set up. She's got an engineering degree, then everything else kind of makes sense. A little bit stranger that Tulip can just sort of like figure out how to. Well, we'll come back to that. That's a whole. Yeah, I've got some problems with the not huge ones, but there's a few issues with the end of this episode. But anyway, the memories are really cool. They don't. I think what works really well about this is the way they set up how Tulip sees herself and Amelia. She lost a loved one, and Tulip, at the end of the episode, sort of admits that knowing this is actually going to make it harder than when she thought the conductor was just a sort of heartless robot. You know, because she sees herself in that character, because it's, okay, yeah, all right, losing a loved one and a divorce are two very different kinds of pain, but they both reacted to it in quite similar ways. So we've already had hints from Mirror Tulip that she locked herself away from her friends, didn't respond to her, their texts and stuff, didn't respond to her mother when she'd call her down from stairs. Like, Mirror Tulip already gave that game away, and yet here we have that parallel with Amelia, who, when she loses Ulrich, is like in her house, like without opening the door, people banging on the door, telling her like the essentially, I think the wake or the service or something to do with that death is happening, and she doesn't even leave to go to it, and then she's running away from her problems the same, and that's when she finds the train, and I just think it's really interesting that I think they describe it as someone who's running away from the changes in their life, and I think that's a really important way to phrase it, because you phrase it as running away from your problems. I think that creates some confusion, because it's like some problems are self-created. I think it's really, the show is making a real strict point about things you can't control rather than problems you create. The issues that both these characters are dealing with were things out of their control. They didn't do a bad thing and are now suffering the consequences of it or anything like that. These are two people who are getting on with their lives in the best way they could, and then an unfortunate thing happened to them. And I imagine this show spoke to a lot of people who have been through divorce when they were younger, and maybe this episode spoke to people who have experienced the loss of a loved one. It doesn't go too deep into it because, of course, Amelia is not our protagonist, but you get enough to understand where she's coming from. And I think that's really good. They do enough in a very short space of time to make you believe her relationship with Ulrich, and then they keep you engaged with that while they're sort of like doing that and building that in, so you understand the pain that she's going through at the end when they reveal that Ulrich had passed. They use the intervening scenes to sort of do this little double bluff thing, where for a little while you think Ulrich's the person who becomes the conductor. You think that because Tulip thinks that, because Ulrich basically designed a voice modulator that is obviously the one that Amelia uses as the conductor. So it's the conductor's voice, and Tulip assumes it's Ulrich, and then it turns out to be Amelia. While I'm on that subject, obviously this episode revealed to me why the conductor's voice was so damn familiar to me, and it's actually one of those things where that double bluff didn't actually work for me, because I had realized in this episode, when I heard Amelia talk and realized it was Lena Headey, who who's a great actress, Game of Thrones, Sarah Connor Chronicles, and a bunch of other stuff I saw in Fighting With My Family this year. She's a really great actress. When I realized it was her voice I was hearing from Amelia, it suddenly clicked that the voice that was so familiar to me last week was also her voice. And it's not clarified in the credits here that that's the case, but I think that's exactly why I recognize the conductor's voice. I think that's Lena Headey with a modulator on in IRL. I think that's what they've done. I think they put a modulator on her voice to create that conductor voice. And I think that's why that was so familiar to me. Here she's just credited as voicing Amelia, and actually the teacher in the dream as well, which is just one of those things where they obviously just got someone to do another voice. Like the guy who voices Gladwin actually voiced the dean in this episode as well. So yeah, I think that's really interesting that they went that approach. For me, it didn't work simply because I had last week lost my mind trying to figure out who the voice was. So there you go. And when it hit this week, I was like, So immediately I knew it was going to turn out to be a double bluff, and that Amelia was going to turn out to be the conductor, but only because I knew the conductor's voice sounded more like hers than Ulrich's. It's a great little twist, and it keeps the episode engaging when it might not have been otherwise, while you were just setting up their relationship. So yeah, it keeps you going. Once we get out of that, and the cat reveals, obviously, once upon a train, there was a different conductor, until Amelia arrived and ousted them for her own purposes. Now, what Amelia's purposes are, I do not know, but she has obviously gone the opposite way of Tulip. Tulip has improved and has gotten better. I think Amelia, if we ever get to see her outside of that conductor costume, I think we're going to see her hand is going to have maybe 999 or something like that written on it, it's going to be like maxed out at a high number, because she's just gone the other way. She's continued to run away from her problems to the point where she's like taken over this train. What she means by for her own purposes, I do not know. I don't 100% understand what Amelia's plans on the train are. But we'll see. We will see. But yeah, Tulip has a really great moment here where she sort of... this is my favorite part of this episode, and one of my favorite parts of the whole series now is going to end up being the moment at the end of this episode when Amelia chooses not to go home. Because I think what's really cool is we've set up this whole thing that running away from her problems was not good. Running away from not just her problems, the way I talked about them phrasing it earlier. Running away from, those things you can't change. Running away from the changes in your life is not the way to handle things. And what they do here, which is so genius, is they parallel that with her situation with Atticus. Because Atticus becoming this thing is a change in her life that's upset her. And then suddenly she can go home and you think, well, there you go, there's your solution. You won't be running away from your problems. Your divorce at home, you can go face that. But it's like, well, actually, no, that can wait. There's another problem right here. And if she's truly learned her lesson, she's not going to run away from this problem until it's dealt with. And that's what I think is brilliant, which is that they have this beautifully crescendoing sort of various things are just coming together in these very, very clever ways. And this idea that she's facing that doorway home, and it's like, well, you've learnt your lesson, you understand where you went wrong, here's your way home. And she's like, well, no, having learned that lesson, actually what I need to do is face this problem, face these changes, and see what I can do to deal with them. And I think that's a really, really cool way to play this, and I think the decision for her to stay and help Atticus is really powerful. And then of course that leads to one of the things I had more of an issue with, which is, so while I do appreciate that giving her the choice to go home is almost weirdly like giving her the option to run away again from the Atticus situation, that's all really cool, and I love the way she makes the choice there. But the premise of if Amelia can take control of things, maybe she can too, does work as a premise, but in practice it's just, I just happen to know to tie this thing to this thing to make this do this, and then suddenly I've got control of this car. It's a bit of a stretch. I know you've only got 10-minute episodes, so it's like really hard to find a way to set this up, and I know they've already set up that she can do some mechanical stuff because of working on go-karts, but I don't believe for a minute that working on go-karts would help you hack into this advanced system and think to use the arm for that. I like that they finally explained the thing they lingered on in the unfinished car and what it's for, and I like that it's for the clawed hand of the steward. Pretty cool. On board with that. Yeah, I found it all a little bit easy. Although, I love that they've turned something that terrified me to their advantage, because I mentioned in a previous episode, I found it really disconcerting, the idea that the cars could switch around, because it just made everything feel so much more hopeless. You could get to the front and then just be immediately put straight to the back and have to make your way through again. The idea that she's taking control of that is awesome, because it's like, she's found a way to use that to her advantage. That's like, clap. I'm going to just slow clap her for that. Very cool. But again, from a practical perspective, seems a little easy and a little sudden and a little... But, again, you got to move the story forward. It's a little bit like the one from the earlier point in the episode. It's a little quick for her to make that change. but it serves the story. You can't spend too much time on it because you really do need to start moving things forward. So I understand the dilemma they were in. Not a full criticism, more of just some observation, rather than actual criticism of the episode. Because I definitely didn't foresee that moving the cars would be something that could actually help her in the end. So yeah, lots of cool stuff in this episode. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, I like the visual of when the door appeared. It was like through the door was like a tunnel up into that sort of black hole in the sky, and that was, it's obviously suggesting they definitely are in some other dimension. That's for sure. Which I thought was neat. I'm trying to think. Are there any other details that I missed? I don't think so. No, I think I caught it all. It is definitely a very strong episode. Probably actually gave less away than I was expecting it to. I know it's one of those episodes that's actually quite interesting because it kind of feels like it gave us all this crazy information, but it actually also kind of didn't at the same time, which I think was interesting. Once again, I noticed that the train looked different when it met Amelia in the real world than it does in that dimension. Pulled in. Oh, you know what? I just pulled up the shot where it pulls in to pick her up, and you can see the front of the car. Okay, so I've got the shot where it meets Amelia in the real world, and you see the front of the train, and it does have the exact thing on the front that looks like what the conductor held. Okay, but yeah, I find it strange the train, the cars look so different when you see it in the real world than they do when you're actually in it. But she gets sort of sucked into it too, the same way that Amelia, the same way Tulip did. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. Like, I don't think there's anything else left I have to say about this one. Just that I thought it was very good and very clever and very funny, as always. And the visuals were good, as always. And the music was good, as always. And this is what I'm saying. These things go without saying a lot of the time with the show. It's awesome. I can't wait. In terms of predictions for the ending, I don't know. I still think there's a chance Mirror Tulip's coming back. As I mentioned in her episode, I think there's an unresolved element of her character there. But I guess it's time for us to, it'll be time for us to see what's actually going on, and see if we can save Atticus. I kind of hope they can. But yeah, I keep trying to scrap my mind for anything else left to say, but I just don't, so I need to stop talking. Thanks very much for listening. This has been a slightly... Oh God, I keep saying this, but it seems to get truer and truer. This has been even more rambly than previous rambly episodes. Hopefully, next week, my number reaches 0, and my door escapes me from embarrassing myself in these videos arrives, and then I can make the right choice and leave you all alone. No, we will be tackling the second series when it comes out, which this is building up to. I hope you're all going to be... Well, you'll all be enjoying that in a day or two, depending on when you listen to this. I'll be watching with you, possibly. Well, I might have to wait and do it one by one and do this. I'm also going to look at... Apparently, someone's informed me there's some like shorts between this season and the next. Someone said they involved one, but I don't know in what capacity. I think they've been airing as teasers for season 2, because I think one of them came up on a stream I was watching for Steven Universe Future. I immediately muted and turned it off, but because I realized it was Infinity Train pretty quickly. So I guess those are the shorts. They've been airing them like promos too. So I'll watch those maybe and review those in one video. But yeah, tomorrow, come back for me watching the final ever episode. Not the final ever episode. Oh God, I am out of my mind today. Sorry guys. It was not a good idea to record today. I'm clearly not with it at all. I am talking absolute drivel. Very sorry, but come back tomorrow where I'll hopefully be more awake as I discuss episode 10, The Engine.